image content goes beyond the real-time experience and can last into 6 months from now. So attendees can come back and look at this image content sort of as a reminder of, okay, I worked hard to get to this point. I want to keep that going. It can be fuel to, motivation and success in the workplace, but also a celebration and recognition of what they're doing and why they traveled away from their families for a period of time.
Welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators Podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Hold it, say cheese, because today's guest is none other than Andrew Shafer from Andrew Shafer Visuals. For the better part of 2 decades, Andrew has been working with businesses and organizations to create visual assets necessary to promote their events, their ideas, their products, and their people. In our conversation, we cover everything from VIP photo shoots to taking photos on site that are available in real time for the organization to utilize, as well as post-production and repurposing of all the digital assets. It's a rich conversation. We appreciate you being with us. You're going to be smarter for it. Welcome, Andrew Shafer.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Where does this podcast find you today?
So I'm based here in Northern Colorado. We're just north of Denver, and we love it up here. It's quiet. It's a good family community, and we like the outdoors. It's kind of the draw for us.
That's a great outdoors with the family. No better place than Colorado. Right there. Are you kind of in the foothills of the Rockies?
We're close. We can get in the car in about 30 minutes. We got peace and quiet. So we kind of have the best of both worlds where we're at. There's a huge influx of transplants coming into Colorado for that very reason. They want to get out of city and hustle and bustle. They want some peace and quiet. They want affordability. So it's a good, diverse area, believe it or not. And I know, Seth, you've spent some time in Colorado. You could speak to that. We have schools here. We have great public education, and it's a happy place to be.
Yeah, and the outdoors, you just can't beat it. Andrew, you and I literally 15 years or so, we've run into each other at all sorts of events where I've had speakers and you've been providing your services. So Andrew, our listeners are primarily meeting professionals, but also everybody that's involved in the whole ecosystem of putting on a conference and an event. I know you, Andrew Shafer, and Andrew Shafer Visuals, on the one hand, capture photos, take images, and partner up with the client or your partner, in this case, at the event, to make sure you understand what it is that they're looking for so that you can accomplish it. But where you're at right now, post-pandemic, this journey in your company's history, what is it that you want us to know about Andrew Shafer Visuals in the context of our audience and what you're working on right now?
Right. I think it's important to note that the way I work with organizations is truly a partnership. So I come on as an extension of your team, and we capture all the images and that heart and that soul of your event and your program. It's really a treat. I get to work with organizations all over. I get to be a fly on the wall, in a sense, to what these companies are about. But at the end of the day, it's my job as a partner with your company to really, again, get to the heart of your event, capture those happenings, everything from keynote speakers to breakouts to offsite dinners and entertainment and all of that, to really come on, tell the entire story of your program, and create content that could be leveraged for upcoming events in real time, and to really help sell the effort that all of these meeting professionals and all of the people involved have put in to make a large scale event happen.
Yeah, you said the heart and soul of the event, right? And it's not just the meeting planners, it's the attendees, but everybody loves to hear that story. Let me say that again. Everybody loves to see the story, because that's what the visuals do. And that's what I've seen you do. We've been at events together at my clients where you're as mundane as checking lighting at a certain time of day, or a certain framing, or a setup of a backdrop, or a particular type of idea of people entering into a cocktail or milling around in between breakouts. All of these little pieces in a through line or threaded together are what have you be able to show the story, right? For the event planner, and that when the attendee sees this thread of images, that they experience and can connect with that. Tell me a little bit, you said a lot, there's a lot to unpack, but do you, and I kind of know the answer to this, but tell me a little bit about how it works. Often you'll take pictures during the day, and then either the next morning at the general session when people are coming in, there are pictures that you've taken that you've provided that evening to the production team to be able to show while people are having breakfast or people are being seated. Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, the event is truly built around that attendee experience. And as meeting professionals on that side, they're really looking for, what can I do to take this attendee experience to the next level? And photography is a big part of that. I would encourage any meeting professional who doesn't have photography on the budget, put it on the budget. Because when we talk about value added, especially in an incentive event scenario, these folks have left their homes, they've left their family, their kids, they're there being, in many cases, celebrated and awarded. And so image content goes beyond the real-time experience and can last into 6 months from now. So attendees can come back and look at this image content sort of as a reminder of, okay, I worked hard to get to this point. I want to keep that going. It can be fuel to, motivation and success in the workplace, but also a celebration and recognition of what they're doing and why they traveled away from their families for a period of time. And there are different ways that I deliver image content to really answer your question. We can do real time, as I talked about. So we can have a digital specialist. They can join me on site. I can shoot, transfer content to them. They can make edits while I continue to shoot. And we can have a real time image delivery experience for the attendees and for the event professionals on site. And the other way that I do that is we can deliver content at the end of the day, like you mentioned. So attendees arrive in the morning, they can see a slideshow of what happened the day before, sort of reinvigorate that event energy that's been going on. And then the third way I deliver image content would be post-event. So I cull through all of the images, I curate them, so to speak, and then I deliver a final image gallery that goes back to the event professionals, and then oftentimes gets shared out through the attendee network. So again, they can sort of reflect on that time away and enjoy it.
I go to events all the time. And if there's not a photographer, it really calls our attention. I would say 99.9% of the events I go to have photographers. And if they're not there, there's a reason for it. Maybe there's a super VIP, somebody well-known where it's prohibited or something like that.
Sure.
And, in the context of today, Andrew, where it's an Instagram, TikTok life, where everybody has a camera in their hand, whether it's an iPhone, a Google phone, whatever kind of brand phone you have, everybody's a photographer and taking photos. But the other side of the coin is that you're at these events, and I've seen it happen where people could be at a cocktail or during a networking, people are intently speaking, and you go to take their picture, and the ham in them shows up where all of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm getting my photo taken, right? Sure. And that must be cool for you because you can have a little bit of an interplay. As much as you wanted that cameo or that shot where they know you're not looking, you'll have a chance to get those. But when people interplay with you, it gives a little bit different of a texture.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. The style that I shoot in, well, I can go different ways. We can do grin and grip. So I pull 3-4 people together. We do a smile, grin and grip shot that way. Those are great. People love that. It documents who they were there with, who they were networking with. But the other approach, the other style that I take with my photography is I love to be, again, the fly on the wall.
Right.
And I like that candid imagery because it gives real emotion. It provides that opportunity to capture that real emotion, that real interaction that people are having in conversations. And so that's part of it. But as you said, if they do see me out of the corner of the eye, I often, we turn heads and we get a smiling shot. And sometimes that's the best image. I didn't
That's
have to
right.
close it, but I was there at the right time, at the right moment. So I'm not sure the proper terminology for this, but I'm good at working a room, monitoring what people are doing, really anticipating what might come next. If I
Right.
hear a, "Hey, how you doing?" I know immediately there's a handshake that's going to follow that, or a
Sure.
hug, or
Right.
something. So I'm sort of anticipating what might happen just based on how the room is flowing, and so that's a little bit of a look into how I approach that.
Yeah.
Um,
And, that has to do with partnering as well, because, based on your preparation, your conversations from the beginning, the initial thought of bringing in a client and having an idea of what they want to accomplish,
right.
that seed that's planted there, you have a sense of their style, their tone, their sensibility, what texture they're looking for. And then that informs kind of your approach. I've seen you do it, and it's great. I,
That's a great point. Each company has a different culture. Each event has a different feeling or intention. And going back to what we talked about earlier, having those discussions with the client up front and beforehand and understanding really what the, like you said, texture is meant to be of this event informs how I shoot and how I interact or don't interact with folks. And knowing people that maybe shouldn't be on the shot list or folks that I should focus more on.
Right. And a little bit of a nuts and bolts kind of mundane technical piece. And I've seen this executed so many different ways. It's agreed upon beforehand. But when a meeting planner engages with a photographer, what they're looking for is the capturing of the event, getting the tone and the texture and the spirit and the heart and soul of the event through photography, so that storyline and that storytelling is apparent, and the experience for the attendees and the organization and what their core virtues are that they want to transmit from this conference and this event is then demonstrated through the photography. And that's where the magic happens in capturing images. And in the post event, Andrew, it's people have access to a platform, password protected, based on whatever agreement you arrange with the organization, the company, the association, on how they can repurpose, reutilize, or access those photos. Say a little bit about that.
Well, every company has hired an event photographer for any number of reasons. Oftentimes, in large scale events, it is we want to, again, document all this custom signage we've made. We want to document all the AV. And then on top of that, we want to use all the speaker images, attendee interaction, and put that together collectively in a piece that we can sort of market internally to folks who will be attending the following year. And it's also a piece that helps underscore that line item at the end of the year on the budget. Well, we spent, tens of thousands of dollars on this. What did we do? Well, here's what we did. You have a visual story of that event.
Again, I go back to my comment about the Instagram world, the TikTok world. Everybody has a camera in their hand.
Right.
And this is the distinction. Everybody is a photographer, but are you a great photographer? Can you tell a story with images?
Right.
And I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I've been told that photography is painting with light. That I was told that 25 years ago, and I'm still trying to figure that out. There's composition, there's arranging, there is angles, there's long shots, close-ups, all these techniques that come into play.
Sure.
And the equipment is important. I've also been told by photographers themselves the best camera is the one you have in your hand. And, Andrew, it could be this one. It's incredible, the images and the HDR and what you can get out of it.
Right.
Or, going a little bit old school, you can, shoot and click here with this one.
There
right?
you go.
And everything in between. But the emotion And the heart and soul, as you referred, I love that comment of what is captured is really the essence, the core virtue of it all. My favorite line that I heard about photography from photographers, and more than one, is when they're asked, "Hey, Andrew, you've been taking pictures all day and I see you're taking a break. Can I ask you a question?" Sure, and it could be you or others, but I've heard this more than once. I'm thinking about getting a camera and this and that. And what's the best camera?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been told the best camera is the one that's in your hand at the very moment that you want to take the shot.
100.
Because, it's the carpenter, not the hammer. It's the gardener, not the mower. It's the tennis player, not the racket. Right.
You said
And
it.
I just think that, with these IMAG screens and you doing an end of the day recap or a real time, it's amazing and everything. But if the spirit, if that magic, if that heart and soul isn't captured, I don't care how good your composition, your lighting, your angle, your framing up is, it doesn't matter. And that's what I've seen you communicate. Talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. No, I think that's an important point. And I do get that question a lot. I want to buy a camera. What's the best one? And best is always relative as it applies to equipment and as it applies to what is, quote unquote, a good photo. And it's really being there and having any type of equipment, including your Polaroid, to capture that moment. I think content creation is all available for everyone. And the attendee experience is behind their own camera phone. And a lot of events have apps that they're posting to, they're hashtagging to. I think it's equally important for attendees to capture and share their own content from their perspective as it is what I do from my side. It's a real marriage of the content that's being created from attendees and from what I'm bringing to the table. Two very different perspectives, but again, equally as important to that attendee experience.
That's a very unique and very rich leveraging the attendee's unique individual experience and then blending or marrying it with fusing it with the professional on site who has a certain directive and is informed on what the event's requirements and needs and desires are as far as demonstrating and manifesting and presenting the heart and soul of the event. And what a cool, very organic, unique, super tailored, curated way to use both the professionals' images and those of the attendees at the event. Very, very cool.
I love it. As I mentioned, for the majority of the time, I get to be a fly on the wall. But the other percentage of the time, I'm immersed in it. I'm sort of living that event vicariously through these attendees. If I pull a group, 3 or 4 people together, and I want to capture an image of that because I know that's what the client is looking for, oftentimes I'll get 3 or 4 cell phones. They say, "Hey, can I get one on my phone? Hey, can I get one on my phone?" Sure, I'm happy to help because that's your experience. So I get the best of both worlds and everybody's happy and I'm having a good time and I'm loving what I do. Their experience is elevated. And then at the end of the day, they have an alternate shot of that group photo, or that's something that they can use in internal marketing later down the road. It's a real immersive and connective experience.
And so I'm going to walk us into shift the sands of the subject a little bit, but very related. There are so many technological advances happening in the world, not just at events, but in photography and all over. Artificial intelligence, to name a few. And then you layered into kind of this boom or this bounce back from post-pandemic and all the implications of that, of how we're creating events, included how we're curating the photographs and the storytelling visually of events. How do you see, from your perspective, these technological changes that are here and now and going forward are going to keep coming with the work that you do and how that impacts storytelling visually at events?
That's a great question. I think the very nature of events is people coming together. Why do we do that? We do that because people need each other. We need personal connectivity. We need storytelling. We need inspiration. We need all those things. And that happens when we're together. Photography is a part of that experience. It tells that story. It helps tell that story. You lived an experience. You had a great conversation. You heard a phenomenal keynote speaker. I come along and I document that experience for you, and it can't be replaced the same way you can't replace meeting with each other in person.
It's so true. The human connection, it just can't be replaced, right?
AI is a real thing,
Yeah.
but I don't think you could replace real time capture of
Yeah.
what's happening live.
No, and I would
Today.
say this. I mean, this is my observation. Artificial intelligence is here. Run towards it. Don't run away from it.
Agreed.
Learn. It's a tool. Learn how to use it. Maybe there's a way for you to sort or group or hashtag more efficiently and save time, or there's ways that free up your creativity at the event and to explain or demonstrate to your clients or attendees what more is possible. Because you're the fly on the wall. You're so focused. You've got to execute. I mean, here's a human thing that artificial intelligence can't do. And even if you put a camera on a drone and gave it instructions, it's still, don't miss this shot. Make sure you hit this shot. And you could code a drone with a camera and say, general session starts at 8 a.m. What happens when the power goes out? Are they going to be able to read that? Maybe. But are they, and the lights don't come on till 8:15, and then you're there in real time. Well, you're now have shots behind the scenes watching the team resolve an issue. Now that becomes a mini story within the story. And
Sure.
while artificial intelligence, I'm just completely making this up off the top of my head, while artificial intelligence can probably dance with that, as you said, the human element and why people are coming together and the spontaneous, organic, magical, serendipitous moments that come. I don't understand artificial intelligence enough yet to know if it's going to be able to capture that unless you have 1,000 cameras that are just taking shots all the time that are going to be able to lift the veil and continue to tell that story.
I think that's an interesting perspective. A lot of how that's going to work is, it will come in time, honestly. How will that be a tool, as you said, to what we do, creating imagery? I will say this, though. I've driven cars with self-driving technology. It's fascinating. It's cool. But there's a lot of things it cannot anticipate. And that just goes back to that human element. And when I can show up in an event and anticipate what might happen, I see a rainstorm coming. Okay, I know the outside cocktail hour is shifting inside. How do I shoot that differently? How do I light that differently? That's something I can plan for. Well, maybe not necessarily plan for, but that's something I can adapt to on the fly.
Sure. Yeah. And that adaptability and that real time dancing, if you will, with the music that's being played in real time is the expertise. Like you're anticipating, you see her, hey, hello, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. And a hug or a handshake are coming. There's the shot.
Right.
I think that, even a Polaroid has an interesting feel to it that, the technology of today can't necessarily produce or capture.
It's funny you bring out the Polaroid, but it was, at the forefront of instant image gratification. And that's what we live by now with TikTok and Instagram and sharing images in real time at meetings. It's crossed my mind. Maybe I just throw an old school Polaroid over my shoulder and I can bring that along with me and we can hand something off to attendees. People like things tangible. That's why, vinyl records haven't gone away when they said they would as the CDs came out and things like that. People want instant gratification. And that's the whole story behind the Polaroid. And that's what we do in real time at these events.
And even I've heard, I'm no hipster, but, stick shifts are kind of making a comeback. Younger mechanics learning how to repair stick shifts are making a mechanic. So in that analog kind of world, there's a real expression that has a uniqueness to it. And I think that's what, Andrew Shafer Visuals, your storytelling, that's what you're kind of bringing to the table, this complete package. Maybe not every event is going to use every single tool, but when you partner up and you talk to your clients and the event organizers, that you're saying, hey, here's the range of what's possible. What do we want to accomplish? Here's what I recommend based on what the objective is. And then let's go ahead and build out from there. And it's a fun, cool thing because the images, Andrew, you know this, they're so visceral. People just love it, you know?
Well, I mean, and the objective answer to what is a good image is, does it make you feel something? Good, bad, happy, anything. Does it
Yeah,
make you feel something?
thinking.
It's
Yeah.
accomplished its job.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. We're not quite at the end. We're getting closer to the end. I want to ask you, what is it that you're working on right now that most excites you?
That's a great question. And I think that question has a little more latitude than just the professional space.
Sure.
And I love that over what do you do for work? So how I would answer that question is, I love photographing my kids. My kids are phenomenal. I'm biased, obviously.
Clearly,
They're talent.
you're partial.
I'm partial. They're talented musicians. They're talented dancers. And for me, I get excited about that. When's your next show? What's the next costume we get to shoot? How am I going to shoot that? And just being a real integrated part of my kids' lives. I mean, obviously, as a parent, that's what we all do. But to be able to match my skill set with what they're loving about life right now is priceless. I love it. That's what I'm excited about doing right now. I work and I love the companies I work for. But at the end of the day, these kids, that's where I draw my true excitement.
Yeah, they're a pure font of inspiration,
Absolutely.
We shared our stories about our children, and it is a question that I actually got from a speaker. Not like, what do you do for work? Or, in some of the Latin-based languages, French and Spanish and even Italian, if they ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you dedicate yourself to? Which is an interesting angle. But I ask people, and I was trained by a speaker to do this, it's more open-ended and it's more inviting for people to, I think, share things other than being constrained into what it is where they earn money or what their profession is. Say, right. What are you working on that most excites you? And it could be rebuilding the engine of my boat, or I'm teaching my daughter how to skateboard, or, I'm learning how to play guitar, whatever it is, right? It's what's exciting you. It's cool.
It's an important note, and I'll sort of go down a rabbit hole here. But it's an important note that, we're all human. If we spend, 90% of our time at an office with other people, that's still life. It's important to recognize that. So I think you can't just distill a person down to what do they do in their working life, but what do who are you? What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? And sometimes those paths cross. And I would say for me, I'm so grateful that I get to do what I love and get paid for it, if that makes sense. And so
absolutely. I mean, we do have to eat,
we do have to eat, but people are more than their 9 to 5s oftentimes. And I think that's a great way to get at the heart of what a person really is.
They are. And we're all more than one thing, we're not just one thing. So it's very, very well said. Well, Andrew, are you ready for the next part of our conversation, the 20 question part?
Oh, Lord.
As I shared with you, it's the spirit of 20 questions. It's not 20 questions themselves, but, it's just a little bit of rapid fire. We have some fun, and it'll be over quicker than you know.
Let's do it.
Ready?
Let's go for it.
All right. What's the most interesting thing about you that we wouldn't know from reading your resume?
Oh, gosh. I used to own and operate a skateboard shop years ago.
Wow. Ball bearings, trucks.
All of it.
I had a Boulder board, a skateboard the brand was Boulder. And
no kidding.
When I lived in Boulder, it said Boulder underneath. That's really cool. Skateboard shop. Man, that's a whole nother podcast. There's a lot of stories there.
We could talk about that, but that wouldn't be short and sweet.
What's the last book you read?
Oh, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry.
Very cool. Is that by
Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah, very, very cool. I've read a couple of his. They're short, they're to the point, but they give you feel like you're learning and accumulating some great information.
He's a great science educator.
Social media, friend or foe?
That's bittersweet, my friend. It's a necessary evil. Okay. What can I say?
Can be a little bit of both.
Yep.
What's the next place that you want to visit on your bucket list? The next place to travel?
It's got to be the Philippines. My
Philippines.
wife, my kids, they all have ancestry there.
I heard it's beautiful. One of my another dear friend of mine, he's been there. His wife has ancestry there as well. Her parents are from the Philippines, and it's a special, very, very special place.
Great culture, beautiful location. Yeah.
What is a trick or a tip or a suggestion to make people feel comfortable in front of the camera?
The way I approach it, I want to make a personal connection. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'll ask questions about you, and I connect the dots. I don't want to be the camera in front of the person. I want to be the person with the camera. So creating a personal connection with any subject is paramount to making anyone comfortable.
That's really well said. The person with the camera. You're not just the camera. Really, really well said. Is there a person, a place, or a concept that you'd love to photograph?
I think generally speaking, if I can shoot something that helps others or uplifts others, that's what I want to aspire to continue working in that space. I do a lot of nonprofit work because that's fulfilling in a different way. I can give back to my community and help people in that way. And so that's something I'll continue to pursue.
Got it. What are some of your favorite 2 or 3 or however many photo editing apps?
It's got to be the Adobe suites, but mostly Lightroom, Photoshop.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you use those on your phone as well? Forgive my Luddite.
No, that's a fair question. There are phone app versions of those. Typically, if we want to articulate, color correct, make adjustments, that's done on a regular machine. Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a cheater. I use Snapseed. Does all the work for me.
I'm not going to lie. I've used Snapseed a lot in the past too. It's a great way to bring up some shadows, highlights, and play around with it for sure. Great for instant gratification. You can tweak an image and post it.
Yeah. And it makes you feel more pro, at least for us amateurs.
There you go.
Well, Andrew, we've come to the end of this episode of the Keynote Curators podcast. I think we're going to be revisiting down the road to see what new work you've created, how technology and what you do are converging and being deployed for meeting professionals and events and conferences. I just thank you for your generosity, your willingness to share time with us and be here with us and impart some really important ideas and concepts and insights for our audience. So thank you so much.
I thank you, Seth. This was a blast. I'd love to keep that conversation going. So let's continue.
You got it. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.